Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. Kevin, Angel, and Leanne today. Leanne was kind enough to join us on this episode. So today we have a really cool kind of topic that we're going to be discussing, and something that's been super helpful and, formational for me over the past couple of years when it comes to growing my business. And that's just kind of being around other people who are in the same industry as you and just trying to accomplish the same types of goals for you. And more specifically, what we're kind of talking about here is utilizing a community of similar entrepreneurs. So for you guys, that would be other dog training business owners to just kind of use as motivation and inspiration to be around and learn from and share with and stuff like that. And just kind of the power of coaching and being a part of another community. So with that being said, Angel, why don't you kind of open it up? I know this was a topic that you wanted to kind of discuss today, and why don't you kind of share a little bit about what your thoughts are on this?
Yeah, well, this stems from a little bit of a conversation that Leanne and I had earlier this week, where we were basically just talking about, our clients and the group coaching call that we do and stuff like that. But that's what kind of started all of this, was just people needing to take advantage of the resources a little bit more. Obviously, in our case, that's something that we offer to all of our clients, the weekly group coaching call, one-on-one coaching and stuff like that. And we do have a lot of clients that show up to those, other clients that stay a little bit quiet, which is totally fine. But I think it's definitely one of those things that is super important that you just need to make time for. And again, in our case, it's something we automatically offer to our clients. But for other people who maybe aren't our client, or even people in, another industry and stuff like that, super helpful to even find that type of community, whether you buy into it, where you're paying, a subscription to be a part of a community just with other business owners in general, or people in your same industry. I guess just bottom line is making the time in your schedule to be in a community like that, talk to other business owners and like-minded people on a regular basis, being able to have people that you can bounce ideas off of. And, you're not the only business owner in your industry. And so it goes a very, very long way to be able to talk to someone else who is dealing with the same things you are, maybe hearing the same objections that you are and how they handle it versus how you handle it, and just being able to hear the different perspectives that people might have. I mean, we notice it every week on our group coaching calls, where we'll have a general topic that we're talking about, but it often ends up going into a conversation where it's the clients kind of going back and forth, talking to each other. And I love that. I love when people start talking to each other and just giving each other advice and feedback and stuff like that. I think it's really helpful for people who could really use the feedback, but don't, outright ask for it. But yeah, just really helpful to kind of have that community, or even a mentorship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Something that I find really cool is when some of our clients connect and, have relationships even outside of a group coaching call. I've heard from people oh, I was talking to so-and-so the other day, and these are two people that would have never met had they not both been a part of our community at the same time, and they hang out in real life and all that stuff. So I think that's always super cool. But yeah, I mean, I even had this realization the other day when I was on a coaching call for a community that I'm a part of, and I had somebody say something that just hit me like a ton of bricks, where he was saying that when I first joined this community, he's I just didn't really take it that seriously. And I think that was something that I really identified with, where it's one thing to purchase into a coaching program. It's another thing to actually start implementing it. I think that's the first step is a really good one, of putting yourself in a position where now I'm going to start getting the information and advice I need to grow this company. But there's a certain moment where the rubber hits the road. And Leanne, you could definitely talk about this, where it's okay, now it's time to start implementing it. And just being there is like the first step, but then it's like kind of like going into implementing it. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have anything that you feel like could be helpful for people, or just anything you've seen over the past like months doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I honestly have seen a kind of a direct correlation of like people who start out with us and come to our group coaching calls and ask questions and implement the strategies that we talk about, or just taking advice from people instead of being like so stuck in their ways. I've seen a direct correlation of like people who come to our coaching calls find success quickly. And again, like, to each their own, however you want to show up for your business. Like, yeah, like you don't have to. It's an optional thing. However, I always think it's really smart for people, especially starting out their businesses, to listen and take advice and be open-minded about what other people are saying. And to also surround yourself with people who are like-minded, but B are also successful. You know what I mean? When you surround yourself with successful people, you will find success essential eventually. You know what I mean? Just by implementing their strategies and, just trying different things out. I think people get really stuck in their ways sometimes of like, oh, this doesn't work. I've only tried it a handful of times, but this is not working. But when you're in our group coaching call and you're seeing that people are showing up for in-person consultations, people are doing the things that we say to do, answering your phone, you know what I mean? Do your own sales, don't hire a virtual assistant to do your sales for you. Do your own sales, show up to that person's house and take action. And I think that when people take these strategies and our advice and talk to other dog trainers about what they're doing, they find success.
Really well said. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the age old, if you hang out with four millionaires, you'll become the fifth, you know?
Mhm.
If you hang out with four addicts, you'll become the fifth, you know? And I just have noticed that for myself as well, where it's like, even if I don't have something specifically on my mind that I want to go talk about or ask a question about to a business coach, but I just show up and I'm just like, just kind of want to maybe feed off of the energy of somebody else on the call, or I just kind of want to hear what other people are going through. Inevitably, I always walk away with something super helpful and insightful. And it kind of, at least at the very least, gets my mind going, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we both have been on like coaching calls before where it might not be something where they are talking directly to dog trainers or they're not talking directly to dog training business owners, but it's just like business coaching in general. And there might be some stuff that doesn't apply to you, but like in my case, there are things that I've learned, whether it's on a coaching call or just like other material that I've read or watched or something like that. And there's always something that you can take from it and apply it to what you're doing. Or again, in my case, apply it to myself to be able to be a better coach for our clients or learn a different sales tactic or something like that that I can then help our clients apply into what they're doing. So again, it may have been something that I learned from a completely different business industry, but you're able to apply it to, what you're doing, in this case, dog training.
Yeah, I think that just being around other people is always a very, very good thing. And again, like I was saying before, like at the very least, it'll inspire you to do something. I think that this is the age old spend time working on your business and not in your business. I think sometimes
Mhm.
people are like, oh, I don't have enough time to go to that group coaching call or to meet with my coach 101 because I got to go do this consultation, or I got to go do this session, or I got to return these calls, or whatever it is. But, there's a time and place for everything. But what I've seen with a lot of people over the years of doing this is they're always so stuck on working on just the day to day that they never give themselves an opportunity to like dream a little bit and like build out what they want the future to look like. And I think that meeting with, for all of our clients, using that as the example, it's a really powerful thing to be able to do, is like sit down, speak to somebody who can kind of help you start thinking outside of your own thoughts and outside of the box and planning for the future and what you want things to look like, instead of just like fixing the immediate fire that's burning today. Like, this client's upset with me. This person's being really annoying because I didn't send them the photo of their dog yet today. I got to return that phone call. I think sometimes you're going to have fires in your business that you almost kind of need to let burn in order to get other things done. When you're the only person doing everything yourself every single day, sometimes you need to be like, I know I have 2 calls I need to return, but this is equally, if not more important, to go and do this, because it's going to be the thing that long term is going to inspire more growth. And yeah, there is something that needs to get done today, but is it really going to make a difference, training this dog, for instance, like right now or an hour from
Mhm.
now? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. And I think even more so for people who, I mean, no matter where you are in your business, no matter how big your business is, no matter how big your team is or anything like that, like always important to like still have that community and mentorship and coaching and stuff like that. But I think even more so for people who are starting out or maybe don't have anyone on their team yet, don't have a team yet. It's literally just you. You're doing everything in your business. You're doing all of the training on top of all of like the, everything else that comes with running a business. Just like sitting down with someone, and even if you're not necessarily like bouncing ideas off of them or anything like that, but just being able to, verbalize everything that's going on, because there's always like a never ending list of tasks that you have to do, like always in the back of your mind. Like I want to do more with my social media. Oh, I also have to like call these 20 leads back. I also have to send all of these updates for this client that I currently have. And then, oh, I need to remember to reach out to this one person to see if they can help me with my website. Like so many different things for different parts of the business. And I've had conversations with clients like this before too, where they just basically like word vomit everything that's going on. They don't necessarily come on the call with like, "Hey, I have this one issue. Can you help me through it?" But it's almost just like venting. I just like let them vent. They like, again, kind of like word vomit all of this stuff going on in their head. And then I just help them out with like prioritizing everything. And it helps them just like take a deep breath for a little bit so they can get back to, you know, the tasks for that day that they need to do, but they have like a better, like mapped out plan of how to proceed with all of these other bigger things in order to grow the business.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Leanne, I'd love to hear from your thoughts on this because I feel like you probably see this from time to time as well, where somebody may show up to a call with you and not have a specific question. And that may be a reason why some people don't book a call is because they don't have a specific question. But when they show up, it ends up being a very fruitful conversation. And, you know how to kind of like just ask the proper questions to kind of figure out where the current bottleneck may be in their business and help them work through that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like that actually happens most times during my call where there's not a specific issue, but there are things to be said or things to be asked to kind of help them kind of come to a conclusion of, yeah, where is the biggest bottleneck of their business? Like, are they in a position to hire? You know what I mean? Is it something that they should even consider? You know what I mean? And just asking questions of like, how's everything going? Like, how many leads do you have? Like, where are you finding issues with if you're having issues with targeting or something like that, where you kind of just like ask like general questions and they end up talking and like coming almost like it kind of puts into fruition like something that might have been at like the back of their mind. And they're like, oh, actually, like I've always wondered about this. Like, can you explain how this works? Or do you think I should do that? And sometimes they just like kind of talk out any issues that they might have not had at the forefront of their mind but actually end up being really good questions I can actually help them with, which is really important. So yeah, most of the times I feel like with my clients, like it is a general check-in, but we actually end up talking about something like way more fruitful in the end of just like even them just showing up to talk to me. You know what I mean? I feel like in any conversation, any coaching call or group coaching call, like you guys said, there's always something that you can take away. There's always something that like, you might have not have worked for a dog training business. Like you don't know how those places operate. You know what I mean? So it's really being important to go to coaching calls to get more experience on what other people might be doing in their business and how that maybe can be applicable to yours or something that you can implement right away and find quick success.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It just can't hurt. Every time I go to a coaching call and I think to myself, like, I don't really have anything I want to ask here, I always end up taking something away from it? So I think the other side of this too is like, we're kind of speaking more so about our current clients and, how they benefit and how it's benefited us and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of people out there who do feel like they need to do everything on their own. And they're running a business entirely on their own, trying to figure out ads by themselves, trying to figure out their sales process, trying to figure out their pricing and their programs by themselves. And I think that this is kind of like I guess just me kind of putting this out there. That's like, even if you don't come to work with us, this is not a pitch to come work with Top Dog Advertising. It's just something that I've picked up over the years. Like, you're not supposed to know how to do everything yourself as a business owner. But I think that's a trap that a lot of us can fall into where you feel guilty not knowing something and you feel guilty, yeah, like having to pay for it or something like that, or having to have somebody show you. So you don't do it because you're like feel shame around it. And you feel like you got to figure it out on your own and put in your time and your years and stuff like that. But what I always think about is like, if I can just put my ego aside, speaking for myself here, and just go ask for help and be like, how can I shortcut this? And what did you do to solve this problem when you were facing it? There's been instances where I can tell I've saved myself like years of heartache. I'm just speaking to somebody who's further along than me and has been able to help me. And again, like even if it's not with us and it's with somebody else, I think that having somebody who's in your corner who can kind of point you in the right direction or tell you if you're on track or you're missing the mark is such a valuable thing. And what I always come back to with this stuff is like the most successful people in this world have coaches. Michael Jordan had a shooting coach. Tiger Woods had a swing coach. You know, the idea that these people who are at the pinnacle of their sport and are like like they are the archetype of greatness in those fields, that they looked for help and, you know, had somebody pointing them and directing them along the way, but we don't need that. It's like it's just a misguided way of thinking. So I just think that, you know, if you could put that stuff aside and just realize like, hey, everybody needs some guidance in one way or another, and you can go and seek that. I think that you're going to end up making a lot more money from it. You're going to end up saving yourself a lot of heartache, and you're just going to have a lot more peace and a lot more fun, frankly, running your business instead of just trying to grind it out on your own every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like besides like advice aside, going to a group coaching call and like tips and everything, I think it's like honestly, it's the energy that it brings you. You know what I mean? Like I've taken a lot of different group coaching programs that are in different industries, just wanting to find more information of like if that was going to be my thing. You know what I mean? So I always found that like going to a group coaching call, no matter what, made me feel like I had more intention at that point. You know, it made me give me more energy to like, okay, I'm going to try this out and see if I really like it. But just even just showing up to those helped me tremendously with my mindset. You know what I mean? Of like, okay, I'm going to do this. I have some tools. You know, I'm going to implement this right away. And it's always like helps me even reset. Like if I'm having a crappy week and I'm like, everything is on fire, nothing's going right, just showing up to a coaching call, I've always found energy back. I always felt like I was re-energized again.
Yeah.
And then I was ready to take on whatever was coming up in my day.
Yeah, really well said.
There's
I had that exact experience yesterday. I'm sorry, Angel, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just want to say I had that exact experience yesterday. I was feeling very lost on a specific topic. And then I just heard somebody who was way ahead of me and just asked them point blank, like, I don't even necessarily know what I'm asking right now, but I'm just feeling a little bit lost. And then they were able to just kind of like troubleshoot with me in like 30 seconds. And then like a minute later, I'm exiting that call being like, I know exactly what I need to do now. And so, like you said, you never know what you're going to take away from it, but just going at the very least is going to give you some sort of direction.
Absolutely.
there's a lot of Facebook groups out there, especially for dog trainers, and you know, ones that I'm a part of, and people will go on there, they might have a problem and they're like, you know, hey, what do you guys do for this, or how do you handle this, or whatever. They're helpful, but there's just something completely different about like being intentional about it, telling yourself, you know, every day on this day, or every week on this day at this time, I'm going to keep my schedule clear. I'm going to sit down and like get on a call with this group of people. And like you guys were saying, like you could join a call just like in a shitty mood, you know, you're just feeling down, you're maybe a client like pissed you off or something like that. And then you get on this call and maybe someone else is dealing with the same exact thing, but they have a completely different perspective. Like, yeah, it bothered them, but then this is how they handled it, you know? And, or maybe even hearing someone else like kind of have the same issue. Like you mentioned, Kevin, like you had this issue but you heard someone else kind of like talk about it. Like, I'm not exactly sure how to ask this, but they proceed to like ask about it, vent about it and stuff like that. And it's like, you may not have something in that moment that you have to ask about, or an issue that you're struggling with. But again, you're just like sitting down, you're being intentional about your time in that moment. You're sitting with other people who are in the exact same boat as you, dealing with different moods, dealing with different, you know, people as far as like if they're willing to get more personal about what they're struggling with. And then you just take something from it, which 100%. I think both of you guys just said, but totally different from just like going to a Facebook group and being like, oh, I have this crazy thing going on. I'm so stressed out. It's this one issue. Like, how do you guys deal with that? Because there's not always going to be a huge fire that you have to put out. But even in those moments where things are maybe like going well, or even just coasting, being in that environment and being intentional about like listening to the conversation, it goes a long way.
Yeah. So two things, and then we can wrap this up for the day because I know we have other calls we gotta get to here. But the first thing is, I think paying into a community is very different than going to like a free community where you're just like, casting a line and seeing somebody would be willing to help you and stuff like that. I've just always noticed for myself that anytime I pay for something in life, I commit to it and I take it way more seriously versus
Hmm.
just like going to YouTube and scrolling and watching 50 videos. Like, even if the information is there, there's something to be said for like paying for something and having like one direction you're heading in. And like, I'm trusting this process instead of bouncing around from this YouTube video to this one and trying to piece it together and stuff like that. The second thing is, I think as human beings, something that really is so important to us is helping other people. And so I feel like that's another big part of this as well. It's like, even if you go to a group coaching call and you didn't necessarily take something away from it, but you were able to shed some light on something for somebody else, maybe that wasn't the original reason you joined. Obviously, you're joining a program to like learn and consume stuff and stuff like that. But part of it I've heard from other people is like being able to help somebody else along in their journey is very fulfilling for a lot of people. I know that it is for myself. Like, there's very few things in life that make me feel as fulfilled and satisfied as when I feel like I genuinely helped somebody. And
Hmm.
so I think that like joining a community and be able to take but also give is a really important part of this as well. But
Agreed.
with that being said, we're going to wrap up the meeting here. But as always, I appreciate you guys, tuning in and watching this and giving us your time and stuff like that. And we will see you guys all very soon in the next one. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.